and MSI happened, the thing that people need to know about on this podcast is what happened to our boys. I am sorry to the players. Their drafts are boring. The way they play the game is slow. They have not made any changes despite 2 abysmal splits. There are players on this team that are good. Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the EUphoria podcast, the first episode ahead of the summer season. As always, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and SoundCloud.
And it's the time you love to hate. It's the tier list. We give you a little sneak peek at all the changes that are coming up for the rosters in the summer split and kind of give you a little preview of what we expect some of the meta things to be as well.
Yeah, overall, we're a little bit here, we're a little bit there. We talk about everything from the history of the new players coming in or the history of what happened to our region at MSI, which, spoiler alert, was a little traumatic. So let's get into it. Or hopeful.
Why not both?
Hello and welcome to the first episode of EUphoria, here ahead at the start of the summer split. This is technically episode 12. I can't count, man. I thought it was 13. We're back. It's weird. Time, you know? Yeah, it's weird to get back into the swing of things. I'm Drakos, that's Dagda.
Howdy.
Yeah, we already did a cool intro. Mm-hmm. So, Rob, what's up? We've been gone for quite some time. Obviously, people saw us in Chengdu, but they didn't get to hear from us on a EUphoria podcast level. What have you been up to?
I feel like I'm still recovering from Chengdu, to be honest. Because the problem that I have is I love having people over, stay in my place, and then like I hang out, I show them Berlin, and like it's all fun and games. But the problem is I keep doing it after international events. So I come back and I'm jet lagged to all hell. And then I'm like, oh yeah, these people arrive in 3 days. I've got to clean the apartment, become an actual human, and make sure that it's all set up for like several people to stay. And then I've got to become host mode. So I've got to like make sure they're all good, show them around, bring them all to good places. So by the time they leave, I'm just exhausted. And then it's like, cool, meetings start in like 3-4 days. So I just do it to myself.
I feel you. Yeah. I think that everybody deserves just a little bit of time post vacation or just like post long work week to just like regress. Yeah. You know, to go back like 3 stages in the evolutionary chain.
You go back to the 8-year-old that's excited to wake up and play computer games from like 6 a.m. until you go to bed and then just repeat that cycle.
And then like eventually remember that self-care is important and figure it out again. Like that is the level of chaos that I think we all deserve at some point in our like busy work lives. All right, I mean, you entertained. I feel like that's dope. That's hosting. Have you been playing anything good or watching anything good?
Played Animal Well. Video game.
You like it?
It is sick.
Yeah?
It's really, really good.
I started it, but I kept playing it for like 30-minute increments and other stuff kept coming up. So I never really got to get into it. Is it like, do you need a couple hours before it all kind of clicks and starts to like really vibe?
So. I think it's like, it's the sense of wonder for me where you kind of wander through a wall and you're like, wait, this isn't the wall and there's something behind it. Or not to like put out spoilers and stuff, but like you get these obviously little, I don't want to say weapons, but like items you can use, essentially tools. But you figure out, oh, wait, I accidentally interacted with this in a different way and it works. And now I'm doing this thing that I'd never even thought that I could do. And you're just like flying all over the place. It's really, really cool. So I think like if you can take even just an hour and a half to 2 hours and just sit down and like get into it, you'll get through a good chunk and you'll start to see all these little micro interactions that you can start to use. And then it's really fun. But I always like those kind of puzzly things anyway.
Yeah, I think that it looks like, I like the low-key aesthetic. I also love that it's such a tiny game because I downloaded it on Switch and it took 2 seconds. And like, don't get me wrong, I've got good internet, but you know, most of the games I download these days are like 100 gajillion gigabytes.
I think it's like 33 megabytes or something.
Yeah, it's like tiny game. So yeah, that's super sick. Hades 2, obviously, Medic was on the train in Chengdu, excited about it. I finally got to go home and play it. Great game. That said, like with any single player game that's not fully released, I don't think you need to rush. It's not going anywhere. Like I don't think people should have FOMO, but it is fantastic. Like that game is so much fun and similar to like the discovery process you're talking about in Animal Well. I think it's really fun in that game to like figure out how to make a good build. Yeah. Problem is, once you figure out a good build, if you're a degen min-maxer like I am, you just only go for that build and you never experiment ever again. You're like, nope, what is fun? Nah, fun is winning. There is nothing left in my PvE single-player game. I have to win the best way possible.
Yeah, I started to play a little bit because I never played the first one.
Oh, okay.
And then I actually tried this one out and I really enjoyed it, but it was like Animal Well and Hades 2 were basically the same time zone for me, where I was like, I have this time to play. Mm-hmm. So I played a little bit of Hades, really enjoyed it, but I was like, I'm tired. I don't have the like Twitch mechanics and everything else that I want to play this game. So I tried Animal Well and it was great. But I do love how how invested Medic is into something because you will immediately it'll all encompass his life. So the second we were in Chengdu and Hades 2 came out, he was like, I won't see you for the next 2 days.
Yeah, he just disappeared.
This is me now.
He just disappeared. And it's also great because Medic's a guy who I think like I love this about him. He's like really, really confident to just talk about like what he's into on social media. Not that he doesn't have, not that you wouldn't want to be confident about that, but he's just like always sharing what he's up to. And so it's really easy to keep up with what's going on. Even when he's disappeared into like the abyss for a month and we haven't heard from him, it's like, well, what's Medic into? Check his Twitter account. Like, it's Magic the Gathering. It's Hades. It's just like 500 tweets to random Magic the Gathering accounts. It's like, oh, I think we found his hyperfixation, guys. I think we know what he's into.
He's got this like 6-month periods that he goes through where there was like the indoor surfing he was doing for a little bit. Then it moves on to like the next
snorkeling,
scuba diving.
It
just keeps going. It's so good.
Absolute homie. Before we go any further in the show, quick housekeeping note from the LEC side. Keep an eye on the LEC schedule to split. If you missed it, there was an announcement that came out. There are some 3-day weeks and there are some 2-day weeks that are coming up. So, for example, this first week, traditional 3-day week, that is Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But then the 3 following weeks are 2-day weeks. The full context as to why this is happening is out there. I won't go into it too much, but the bottom line is like, weekends are going to be shorter, which I think is nice for us on the production side. It means we get to focus more in on specific matchups, but there won't be as many Monday days. So just be sure if you're like planning around watching LEC with friends or whatever that you keep an eye on that schedule, this split. Yeah. Don't want you guys to miss out. Don't want to miss out on the bangers.
Break week after week 4.
And then there's break week after week 4. If you saw the LCS address, another great LCS address from Mr. Mark Zimmerman, the commish, he also talked about it. Everybody stopping down to give space to the teams that want to participate or have been invited to participate in the Esports World Cup to do so, and then to start up again the following week. That said, the other big thing is we talked about Chengdu from like, we hung out together. Medic disappeared to play Hades. We played Magic, but we also cast League of Legends, and MSI happened, and it was great in many, many ways. It was a great tournament. If I forget that I come from Europe, some parts were better than others, But I think the thing that people need to know about on this podcast is what happened to our boys. And we had 2 sets of boys. One was Fnatic and one was G2. One did better than the other. The results won't surprise you, but the nature of the results will bring you great joy or great despair. And if you have been living under a rock, this is your time to stay there, if you so choose. Because what we're about to talk about, you cannot unhear and you cannot pretend away. So the first question to you, Rob, is this. Team Liquid beat Fnatic.
Yeah.
Is this more or less soul-crushing than, like, Mad Lions getting bopped by EG? Like, is this the most soul-crushing loss to NA of recent memory?
Oh, that's hard. I don't know. It definitely hurt. It was really funny because you're speaking of Mark Zimmerman in his address. In the address,
he roasted.
He's roasted us, and then just forget the rest of the tournament.
Don't talk
just
about the rest of the tournament. Which,
yeah.
Sadly for Fnatic, is also kind of what we're doing right now. Like, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff we liked from them, but the one that's haunting us right now, it kind of comes to the forefront of your memory is this particular series against Team Liquid, where, to be honest, if you're a Fnatic fan, this is my 100% genuine take. I'm not just trying to feed you, the mask full of copium, but I do think that they just did not show up on the day.
Yeah.
And that they completely fumbled the bag, because all reports from scrims, and I know scrims, it's not the perfect science, but like TL did not want to play against Fnatic. This was supposed to be a very hard matchup for them, and Fnatic were one of the teams that was contesting top teams in scrims, that were consistently winning against a lot of the teams that, maybe they didn't show up against, like Team Liquid. They were doing well against G2 too. So like all reports behind the scenes were that this team was going to be good, and then it just did not manifest on stage that day. And I don't want to say that like if they replayed that best of 5 on a different day that they for sure would have won. I think it would be unfair to TL to say that at this point, given that they kind of smashed them pretty cleanly. But I don't think that this is like, mostly this is a gigantic badge of shame. This is their scarlet letter, or it's a letter L instead of a letter A. They are just big old losers. But I don't think that this like hurts their evaluation as a team as we look forward to the rest of the year. I don't know how you feel, Rob.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think we got to see some step-ups from Fnatic in different situations with, like, I think Juhan has been really, really good. But I felt like there was just underperformances from, like, I don't think Humanoid was as strong as I expected him to be.
No.
Especially against APA.
Yeah, Sorry, continue.
I just wanted to like sit in the herd for a second. Yeah. I think,
and credit to APA. Like that man knows what he's about. The team knows what he's about, and people keep giving. Everyone wants to APA check.
Yeah,
you know, like guys.
But that's how he gets you.
That's how he gets you.
Yeah.
All chatting up a storm.
He just politics his way through. That's it. It's just the entire way through. It's like, I'm just going to mess with your head. I'm going to make sure that you're in a bad spot. And then you're going to try and overextend to try and kill me. And that's when my jungler
My man's going for the culture victory in Civ. You know, Fnatic tunneled too hard on the military victory. They were not ready for the culture angle. Politics his way through.
But yeah, I think like to give TL their due, I think they had like certain things in their arsenal that... Well, actually, to be fair, a lot of Europe doesn't have like the Lucian. I thought they actually played much better with the Lucian. Like Juhan looked really, really good. Looked like he had a good understanding of how to play with it. And even the final game where he was able to bring it out, it looked really, really strong. So I think there was definitely like angles where TL were able to punish and draft and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely felt like a bit of an underperformance. But like, I still think like Jun, I think had a great tournament, and not to take it away from him, I think he was absolutely stellar. His Renata was sick.
Yeah.
So many. I think was it me and you sitting in the hotel room watching because we weren't on the games, just losing our mind how good Jun was.
Probably. Yeah. That would be par for the course for my experience of watching the game. When you don't have to cast, I'm just like full bias mode for EU. Yeah. So yeah. No. I was locked in on Jun. Noah had a bad tournament.
Yeah.
Humanoid did not have a great tournament. Even Razork had some stinky games. Oscar his
Camille was sick.
He had the Camille game. The one Camille game was fire. It instilled a ton of faith for me, and then the rest of it was kind of like quiet. That one game and that top esports series where they got that game, everyone was like, hell yeah.
Wait a sec.
Hell yeah. Wait a second. And then they had like some okay moments against Gen G, right? So like overall, I'd say
that's what I did appreciate about Gen G. Was they kind of kept it low key, so the tournament looked close until they got to finals.
Who do you work for? Like, I'm sorry, who are you here to represent? We are here for Europe, brother. Yeah, Genji are terrifying and remain terrifying, and Chovy is a scary, scary boy. But yeah, Fnatic was rough. Like we can talk more about what this. Yeah. I think the good news, if you're a Fnatic fan, is that this doesn't drastically affect your domestic expectations. But it does give the Fnatic team and the Fnatic camp like clear things that they can work on to be better here domestically and also to be better for Worlds is kind of my takeaway. But that it doesn't excuse some of the stinkier performances. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think that just because these guys couldn't match up on an international level or didn't show up on one day doesn't suddenly mean that everyone in EU has like caught up to them. I don't want to like push
I still
forward.
Think they're one of the best teams that we have in Europe. And as you say, I don't think one series defines them. It just things that happen to be against North America. But I think they'll bounce back and I think they'll be fine. And I still think, as you say, there's a lot of learnings you can take away from this. So I wouldn't be surprised if Fnatic only come back stronger as a result.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing happened to G2, lost to NA, Super Saiyan. So we just hope the same is for Fnatic, right? That's how it goes.
They just keep getting stronger. Yeah. So G2, obviously, they get the much more hype run where they play the first really close series against T1. Great, obviously the cast, the series, everything just like delivered there. People were vibing, and we got to see we got a little bit more of a look inside behind the scenes in terms of like G2 scrims. And we got a lot more information. We were able to gather more information to understand like kind of what expectations for G2 could be. And I think there was a lot of optimism from me and a lot of other people. And then we came into the top esports series, which should not have been as one-sided as it was. But it was a stomp.
We take those.
It was a stomp. The best bot lane in the world. And or perhaps an LPL team collapsed again. Like, I really want to celebrate. I want to celebrate G2 because I do think that they had a good tournament. But I think that that first series against T1 was a good indicator of what they could do when they had an edge in prep and an advantage. And the series against Top was a good reminder that they are fundamentally a good team. And if you have a bad day, which I do think that Top did, like G2 will just smash you. Mm-hmm. But then kind of the harsh wake-up reminder in the series following was, all right, now that they've seen the tape and they understand what we do in the case of T1, like what is left in the tank? And the answer was not a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of I think that's an issue just with playing against T1 in general, is that T1 don't always come into the tournament with the best understanding of the meta, but they're very quick at almost, if not perfecting it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you can kind of see G2 coming in. They had like the Poppies and Leonas and all these cool things. Even the Rek'Sai for Yike was looking sick at times, but as it started to go on, it felt like Team One just kind of figured out how they
just banned like the Rek'Sai and the Zac, and it just took so much of the
wind out of their sails.
The wind out of their sails, because I think the flexibility of those champions, and to be honest, like Broken Blade was, and probably is, like might be the best Zac in the world on that patch. Probably is the best Zac in the world. Like the amount of
was very good as well.
Matchups,
he was definitely up there.
The amount of matchups where he solo killed enemy top laner.
Yeah.
And like some of that is just going to be he has more experience playing the champ than other people, right? Mm-hmm. But I think taking it away was a good call, and the fact that really limited what G2 could do in draft, because like all of those games felt hard.
Yeah.
Every game in that second series felt like they were like starting at the bottom of a mountain, and T1 were already like 5 steps ahead of them. It was that second series was a little soul crushing after the first series was so close. Like that one was like the swift reminder that like, oh, we are not. There is still a gap here.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of G2 versus FPX back in finals, where I felt like G2 were trying to figure out a way to not make the games standard. Because it was like, bring out the Kha'Zix picks, throw something weird, like underneath the balls, or even like the Jaxes coming out for BB. Like, obviously Broken Blade can play carries, but I don't really think Jax when I think Broken Blade. So I think it was like trying to figure out these picks, or even bring out the Ivern, like bring out something that is just like, you haven't really played a huge amount against this. Maybe we can catch you off guard, but they just couldn't really find a way through. But I still think they did us incredibly proud. Like, I looked at that. I looked at their series against Top Esports, the first series against T1, and I was like, holy crap, they can actually do it. Like, they could actually, maybe not win the whole thing, but they're definitely pushing up with, hey, we're starting to take games, we're looking competitive against these teams. And it feels like that gap had closed quite a bit, because for the last, I'd say even 2 years, I haven't really felt like G2 could compete, or anyone in the West could really compete with them.
I think that's
fair. Fact that we were so, like, obviously the last series kind of exemplified it a little bit, but the other series were incredibly close. And I think G2 really did do us proud and showed that even if they fumbled the bag a little bit in regular season, that the hard work and dedication that they have put in over the last year and a bit have really paid off. And you can see that work.
And validation that their strategy of focusing on like one specific aspect of their gameplay, which was mid-game, like is something that brought them success internationally, even if it, led to a lot of skepticism on our side domestically when we were seeing them punt a lot of early games. You know what I mean? So good to have and be able to test that and validate that, especially when last year, like, it was a very similar progression arc. Obviously, MSI was much harder for G2 last year, but a similar progression arc of like, we're ready for Worlds. We're really like, we're winning scrims, as is frequently the story with G2. We're going to transition this, and then the NRG loss. Despite like the first couple games in Swiss, like actually looking really good for G2, right? Like a lot of optimism right up until we lost to NA, which, hey, Fnatic, now we all understand now, whether you're a Fnatic fan or a G2 fan, what that feels like. And even in that first series, and this is, you can call this a cope if you want, but I think that series was winnable at a lot of different points for G2. And some of those games that they just completely threw. And I hope that doesn't haunt them, right? But I think that in the event that they are able to find a draft edge or be a step ahead of the meta, like, yes, they are a team that probably still needs that one up to really contest or beat the top teams in the world. But that is much closer than any other team in the West is right now, I think.
But I think if you're a team like that, like, I'm not going to try and put words in their mouth, but even though it was a loss, it's got to feel somewhat good, right? Where you're like, hang on, no, we actually were there. Like, these games were contestable. These games were winnable. And like, it's basically saying that all this hard work that you put in is paying off.
Yeah.
And if I was them, it would light a fire underneath me. I'd be like, I'll wait for Worlds, lads. But like, we're coming again. Like, you get the next few months underneath your belt and see what you can cook and what you can bring up. But even the learnings and the takeaways that you have, like, there's no way that you're not coming back off of this and going, oh, okay, I can see. Like, I think even the documentary G2 did. They had like BB talking about it. Was like, look, we were just overexcited at times. We were taking fights we didn't need to. Like, these are very learnable things. And obviously this has been everything that they've been working towards at these internationals. We all got to see it at MSI. So it's understandable that they're a bit excitable when they are getting these leads. But I think if you come in towards Worlds and you're kind of like, okay, we got the jitters out at MSI, let's put the head down for Worlds. I could see them again coming in swinging with a good understanding of what went wrong fundamentally and bringing that up then at Worlds and taking on the world.
Yeah. I mean, I it's hard to know. Like, I think some of it will always, if they play like slightly better than they did today, it like a lot of tournaments for teams that aren't like a Gen G or a JDG for the most part, even though JDG, you know, obviously collapsed last year and maybe now it's BLG we should be talking about. Regardless, you know, you still need a decent draw. You still need the meta to favor you a little bit. But the stars don't need to align like nearly as perfectly as they did for like a 2022, you know, deft run.
Yeah.
I think it's just if a couple things go right and they're able to progress, like this is a team that can be at the very least top 8, which I think would be anything less would probably be disappointment for them. And then I think also probably should be taking series or very at the least consistently contesting series in the way that they did versus T1 off of tournament favorites, right?
Yeah. And I think the big difference in this conversation for me was the last couple of times I've talked about this, it's been like, oh, well, we couldn't compete in X lane. Like, oh, well, you know, Broken Blade wasn't really, he was always falling behind or whatever it was. And this time you're talking about, no, well, Broken Blade was one of like probably top 3, top 4 at this tournament. Like he was an absolute beast in his role. Caps was solo killing Faker. Like it didn't feel. Yeah, Caps had a.
Thank you, Rasmus. Caps goated tournament, especially after last year's MSI where it was like really wishy-washy, you know, Nautilus crap, whatever. Like,
but that's what I mean,
insane.
Right? It was like, hey, we're going to Nautilus because we don't really feel like someone can compete. And like this time around, you're like, no, like Caps has that magic back. And that's what I think is the big one for me is like, it doesn't feel like this is an individual gap or we're getting outlaned or we're already starting, you know, behind at 15. It's no, we're coming in and saying, hey, we can actually compete with you. And now it's just about learning the smaller things. Now, look, obviously trying to improve on the small things is always the most difficult part, but I feel like you're at the starting block now rather than, you know, 10 feet behind already before you kick things off.
Yeah. I'm optimistic about the future. We'll see what it holds for us internationally and see if this also like, again, means more than just for G2, if it means more for the region, if this like motivates everyone. It's like, hey, contesting G2, being a top team in LEC now means that you're going to be a team that can also contest internationally and they can put up good results, because I think that historically LEC has been at its best when there's been like 2 teams fighting for the top spot and everyone is kind of leveled up around those 2 teams. And I don't know if that team is going to be Fnatic that's contesting them again. There's obviously a lot of teams I think that could rise up to that challenge, but I think that's kind of my hope for domestic competition is that the success of G2 lights a fire for everybody and like the entire region is kind of elevated. But only time will tell. For now, we're back to regular season. We're back to domestic competition. And while G2 and Fnatic were at MSI doing what they did, there were a lot of off-season changes. So we'll just kind of go through them one at a time. Giant X, KC, SK, and Vitality all made roster changes. We'll start on Giant X because that's the order I have it in front of me.
Beautiful.
So first up, Oda is out, replaced by the Antonio. Spanish legend from the ERL lineup, has been waiting a long time, has been with Giants since 2017, now promoted, and Peach has been replaced by Juhan. Juhan was also on the Giant X Academy team, or sorry, the Superliga team. He replaces Peach, and if you did not know this man is a world champion. He played 3 games for DRX.
That Maokai skin, baby.
2 Maokai games and a Lee Sin game. And he has a Maokai skin. This man is a world champion, technically. And, you know, he was there. He did help on the run. And he certainly helped the team qualify for Worlds in the first place. I don't want to take any credit away from Juhan. But I also don't want to overhype him. But we will say, and you will hear us say many times on broadcast for at least the first couple weeks, unless he pops off, in which case we'll say it every week. This is a world champion with a Maokai skin. Which, like, the worst probable world champion skin next to, like, Yuumi was funny. You know what I mean? But like, it's like a Malphite world champion skin, which we also have.
Yeah. Hey, look, it was for Umi, all right, you know?
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And also, you know, like the Malphite one also kind of funny. But regardless, who do you want to start with? You want to talk about Juhan first? Or you want to talk about the Antonio first?
I mean, several other. I think Juhan is the more interesting one, to be perfectly honest.
Sure.
Like, we were talking to Vedi yesterday, and I was like, oh, I don't really know. Like, I'm curious to see what he's going to be like. And Vedi gave us this impassioned speech.
He's a world champion.
This guy is the reason that they made it to Worlds in the first place. He popped off. Like, it was, I wanted to stand up and salute. It was so like inspiring. I was like, oh.
This man was spewing hopium.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, look, let's be real. I think Juhan will be an upgrade over Peach. I wasn't a big fan of Peach. I think it was very clear the faults that he had.
Peach straight up lost multiple games for Giant X. And we saw him.
Thank you for being my anger translator.
Yeah, I think the one thing, I don't want to mince words, right? I don't want to take anything away from Peach. It's not that Peach wasn't clutch in certain moments, or that wasn't, and it's not that I don't still think that he can rise up and be a great player, but there were a lot of very fragile games and fragile drafts from Giant X where they drafted this composition that needed to do something just right, and they couldn't really afford to throw any leads. And Peach kept getting caught, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not going to put it entirely on him. Maybe it was a team communication thing. But if, from an outside perspective, with no knowledge of internal workings, you had to make a short list of players to replace, or like you said, you need to replace one player, who's it going to be? I think most people would probably have said Peach.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'm just really hoping that what we started to see towards the end of the split with Giant X, where we got Peach and Ignar slightly working better together, now is just, full through the moon. Like Juhan and Ignar, I want to see you two on the screen at the same time, and just making sure you're getting vision, you're actually setting up for your laners. And then, like, if you can get that early game into a better spot, I think Giant X will be more successful. But it's just to kind of wait and see what's going to happen. And then the other side of the coin, as you said, is the Antonio coming in on the top side. I'm less sold on this change. Look, nothing about this ever told me that Ottawamne was the problem.
And I'll just say on the Juhan point, like, I'm here for the resume, folks, but I watched a lot of those Superliga games from Juhan. It does not feel like he is on the same page with the team. He skips a lot of steps. He has some really standout moments, but, watching some of the series, if he's not on, like, Xin or a champion that's very clear, like early impact champion, this man is making a lot of the same mistakes that Peach did. Now, I think he's a better player individually. There's no doubt in my mind, but I'm not convinced by either of these changes. And for me, it's like Juhan, maybe slight upgrade. Maybe he works better with Ignar. Maybe they just need a change.
I think that's the thing, is like having Ignar almost as like the translator, essentially, to make sure that what he wants to do is there.
Yeah.
Is probably going to be easier. But yeah, I'm kind of a wait and see in this.
Yeah, because I don't, again, the fact that he's a world champion is very cool, but he was a world champion a while ago. And we watched him play in Superliga, and they were like, they were fourth domestic season. They were third. But
in the same way Promise Q is in MSI champion,
I feel like I'm not able to understand the sheer quantity of flame present in that statement, so I don't want to agree, but I think technically you're right. Like, I think there's a lot to unpack in the amount of flame there. But let's not drag Promise Q into this. That man is a national treasure. He's accomplished what only 5 other players in the league have also accomplished.
Fair,
yeah. So I'm scared about Juhan. And the Antonio skepticism, I think, is completely valid because, again, if this is a reset for internal, for vibes, like, and you feel like the Antonio is going to be a massive part of making sure that the team environment is good, like, I can get that. But this is a guy who has been in ERLs forever. If everyone remembers the 2018 Vitality roster, the Jizuke Attila roster, that was an entirely just a Giants team that got ported up to LEC. People were really excited. The person who got left behind was the Antonio. Yeah. And while I do think that he has progressed over the years, like, it's not like he is suddenly individually incredible. Like, he has had some great games. I saw some good Rumble moments from him. I saw him lose lane pretty gracefully. Historically, like, his most played champions are tanks. But this is a guy who I think that, like, if he's not contributing a lot behind the scenes, on paper, this is like a pure downgrade from what Ottawamne brought.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it is a case of the Antonio has been with Giants for years, and it's kind of a, hey, we're going to give you your reward and give you your moment to shine. I think this decision is going to basically depend on what way the meta breaks. Yeah. Because you're having a lot of Skarner at the moment, which I think could fit the Antonio. But if we end up with a lot of like Camille's and Jax's and Kari top laners, I think this is where the Antonio is going to struggle, because I still look at it like I cast him in ERLs for a long time, and I always looked at him as, you know, the Shogath player or the Ornn guy. He's going to play those mega tanks and he'll do a decent job of, hey, I'm going to survive laning phase and I can do my job in team fights. And I think if you've got someone like Patrick, who now maybe can set up with a crit 80 carry meta and try and be that big carry, and Jackie's can kind of be that facilitator mid. Like I loved seeing Jackie's on things like the Nico and that. So maybe that's the way that this works out. But I think if this ends up breaking into the meta breaks into carry top laners, I think that's where the Antonio is going to struggle. And if Skarner is banned every game and it's just like, hey, you're up against Camille, what do you do? I think that's where the problems are going to start to fall for the top side of Giant X.
Also, like, this is a tough time to come in for top lane, right? Like, Photon is a monster. We'll talk about Canna in a minute, but Canna is coming in, and like, you just assume even if Canna is not the best he's ever been, that he's still going to be a powerhouse, right? And like, BB is shaping up. Like, there's a lot. Wonder is shaping up. Like, there's Oscar. Obviously, is a guy who had a pretty rough season, but is a guy who will, like, if he gets his picks, totally
I mean, you can see
dominate.
what he was like on the carries, right? So,
yeah, like the Camille starting to show up brings me a lot of hope for him. And so like this is not, if the meta favors tank tops, I think he'll feel better. But like this is a tough, like historically, you want to bring in a role playing top laner in the LEC. I'm like, whatever, have a great time. Our talent pool is rough, right? But like now, this is a tough split to come in for. Right? Like there are a lot of really good top laners and a lot of top laners who have single-handedly won their team's game, right? Like you can think of the Photon games, you can think of the Irrelevant games, you can think of the Broken Blade games. Oscar has had those games on Cassante where he's like so far ahead, he's building support items for the team. So if the meta supports him, I think he can do all right. And I'm excited for the Giants org to have someone who is such like a pillar of Superliga and the Spanish community. Like that's cool. Like I think their quote on their website is like a true institution of the country and a symbol of our organization. Like great. Like they are clearly amped about this guy. He also has some sort of historical beef with Adam, which is great. We'll add it to the Adam beef list. Really doesn't want to lose to BDS. So I'm like, I'm invested in this guy on a personal, emotional level. I want to see the team do well. I want him to be that like figurehead for Giant X, this like Spanish legend of the Superliga. But on an individual performance level, like he is going to need to shape up and push himself in a way that I think that he just could not have done in Superliga. Even though admittedly, I think that like he played more than just tanks this season. He played some other champions and he found success with some other champions. I don't want to say he's just a tank guy, but I still do believe that that is like his bread and butter. And that might not be enough if the meta isn't perfectly aligned.
Yeah, and I think if it does go that way, like this could be a team that works well together. Like if you get, like in theory, if everything falls the way that Giant X wanted to, it's like, hey, we get tank tops, the Antonio is super comfortable. We have Juhan and Ignar, double Koreans, working super well together, making sure that we're all on the same page and like setting up vision and working really well. And then you've got Patrick, strong 80 carry. You've got Jackie's who I really think starts to grow into his own, as he said, like on things like the Nico and these mages that he can, I know he likes the Akalis and stuff, but I think if you can provide that more control mage style, this is a great front to back team. And that's where I think their bread and butter will be. But if the meta starts to shift away from that, I think that's where they're going to struggle.
And I think that we'll need to see how they see themselves, right? Because Giants was a team that was consistently willing to try stuff in draft. They were willing to play the Nilas. They were willing to play the Ash Varus when they weren't nearly as prevalent in our league. We'll need to see how like their evaluation of themselves, because I think we very frequently talk about a team as like either they're doing just one thing and we want them to branch out, or they're branching out and we really just want them to do one thing, depending on like where they are in the standings. So only time will tell. The other really big set of roster changes, the biggest number of changes we've seen, unsurprisingly, is going to come in from KC. Crushing finishes. Maybe you love them, maybe you love to hate them. It's hard not to have a strong opinion on KC. They're kind of on everybody's mind. But they have 3 changes. Cabo Shard is being replaced by Canna. Yes, that Canna, former...
Which is crazy.
One of the sadly unsuccessful T1 top laners, internationally at least. Closer, coming in for the jungle, replacing Bo. Vladi being promoted from KC Blue, the LFL roster, and replacing Seiken. Where do you want to start, Rob? We can start.
I think we just start top lane because
it's Canna. It's a Korean top laner. I mean, he did not play this year. Right? He played last year, bit of a mixed bag, pretty like solid success in the scheme of things, but obviously a player who would have liked to go much further. And this is a guy who historically has played on T1, has been in the best, one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the world, the LCK, certainly at the time that he was playing in it. And
Yeah, he's trying to do the opposite way to Huni, right? Huni starts in Europe and then wanders his way back over to LCK.
T1, and this guy started in T1 and comes back to us. Yeah, that's right. I like that for Canna.
I think it's going to be super interesting because obviously he didn't play at the start of the year. And I think a lot of people, as he was kind of finishing off on T1, were like, look, this guy is starting to dip off. He's not looking as strong. I think he looks much more comfortable on big carry top laners. Like he loves his Canna and that kind of stuff. And I think if you can have carry top laners, well, kind of the opposite of the Antonio, carry top laners be the thing, I think Canna can look good. And I think especially, we'll talk on Closer in a little bit, but Closer used to play around someday, Heap on 100 Thieves. You gotta potentially someone who's happy to play around that top side. And I think that could be something because the rest of the team like doesn't really spark a huge amount in me. And we can get into it in a little bit, but
sure.
I think this is probably where, if I'm Closer, I'm trying to put my eggs in the Canna basket. If we can set Canna up as a carry, I think that's where you can try and have something on this map. Otherwise, I think you're in a bit of a rough spot.
Yeah, we can kind of, unsurprisingly, we're going to do a tier list later, which we mentioned in the intro for the episode. But I think the team is optimistic about him. My biggest concern is always going to be integrating a new player into the squad and into the lineup. Casey, and shout out to every team that does, like, when you build a new roster, a piece of content. And I know that what they're going to show is always going to cast them in a positive light, but I still appreciate having that information regardless. So shout out to Casey, shout out to SK, anyone else who kind of put these content pieces out so we could get a little bit of insight as to what's happening. But very clear that they're doing everything that they have thought of to try to integrate him into the team, to try to make sure that even if he's not going to learn English as quickly as like you would obviously like, that they're using the same shared language for League of Legends terminology. And the players are really, really amped to have him. Targa basically just said, like, this guy has a champion pool that lets us like do a whole bunch more stuff in draft and is obviously just going to bring in a level of play that just does not exist in the LEC. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
All right. That's a paraphrase, not a direct quote. You can watch the video if you want the direct quote. And it was translated from French. So, multiple points where I could have broken down.
You weren't going to quote the French?
Well, I mean, you could ask me to try, but the French would get mad at me because I don't sound very good when I speak French. But like, there's clearly a lot of optimism there. Canna's a tough one for me because it's not like he was the king of top lane, right? It's not like the value proposition is super clear. 2023 Worlds, they like lose to KT in their qualifying series, right? Or in the qualifying match of Swiss. And we haven't really seen him play since. So hard to know where Canna is going to be.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm probably a little bit more on it is because, and like we can shift this conversation onto Closer, is because I think Closer is the difference maker for me.
Sure.
Because, so I think Closer had a bit of a rough split as he finished out in 100 Thieves. And a lot of people are saying, if you looked at his stats, he was almost like 10th across the board as he was finishing out. But I think this is Closer's moment to bounce back. I think he's incredibly strong when it comes to shot calling. Like there was a couple of clips that were popped up of him in 100 Thieves and in team fights, just nailing every single person that they wanted to take out and how he wanted the fights to operate. And I think that's probably something that KC needs, because when we look at what happened, over the last couple of splits, they don't look like they know, they're running around like headless chickens. So I think having Closer to kind of wrangle them is going to be great. But also the fact that Closer has already worked with a Korean top laner and how to integrate them well and play around in someday on 100 Thieves, I think is going to help out a good bit. And then as well, I think just the meta we've seen teams starting to shift in towards more carry junglers, which is where I think Closer is going to be happier. Like if you look over the LPL, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Like you're seeing things like the Karthus, because Blackfire Torch is really strong. You're still seeing some tanks, but I mean, if you can get him onto something like a Lee Sin, I think this is going to be perfect for Closer and having that early impact. And I think that's where I think Closer can have a rebound here. But it's basically, when I look at this team, it is that those two on the top side that I'm looking at. And I think these are going to be the core now of Karmine Corp, and I'm really hoping that we get to see them pop off.
And to be fair, I think Canna's going to be good. I just don't know how good Canna's going to be and like what shape he is in. I still expect him to be at a baseline, like a very good top laner and a very competitive top laner in our league. And I am similarly excited about Closer. Yeah. You watch the video, he's like reluctant to be like, oh, I'm the leader for the team, but then everything he says points to him being the leader for the team. And he talks about, like Targa doesn't talk a lot, which is something that we've heard as a criticism of Targa as a support for many years from people that he's played with or people that have worked with him. And he's like, but it's fine. Like when he does say stuff, it's super valuable. And like, I will balance that out. Like I will communicate. I'm happy to be that person. Exactly, And I'm like, great. Like what good recognition of what you need to do up front about it, is not going to mince words and be like, no, communication's fine. Like, Targa's talking all the time now. We're best. Like, no, you recognize players are going to have different strengths. And like, if Targa's not going to fill in that box, you're going to overcompensate. You're going to compensate or not overcompensate, compensate, make sure that you can fill that in. And so this to me feels like the KC roster with the clearest direction. Vladi is the guy that we haven't talked about. And I'm going to be honest, looking at Vladi, like, this is a guy that I think to me is, again, similar to maybe the Antonio or Juhan on paper, is more to me about resetting and giving the team a fresh start than like a clear 100% upgrade over Seiken. Now, Seiken had a lot of rough games and in general didn't have the best showing, right? But like watching Vladi, it's not to me like, oh, Vladi for sure is going to be the GOAT. He's got some cool champion pool stuff historically that I'm excited about. Like, I would love to see him pop off and do a lot, but I don't think that the expectation for him is that he is going to be this insane star carry mid laner. I think it's more like the dude brings good energy. He's got history with Apples, who is officially a part, and shout out to Apples because he ran a lot of the in-house stuff. So really appreciate that guy for the scene generally, who's now, I think, officially integrated into the coaching staff, and they work together in the NLC. So I'm sure that this is a guy that they're going to know how to set up for success, but I don't expect his role in the team to be like really flashy carry. I think that he will most likely be a role player for what this team needs. And similar to a lot of the rookie mids that came in at the start of the year, or the mid laners that like we were maybe a little bit more tentative on, whether it was like someone or Jackie's, it's like, I'm not going to give you hard expectations for this guy, but I don't expect him, like at best, I expect him to be middle of the pack. At worst, I expect him to be a liability. And I certainly hope that he's not going to be a liability.
So I watched some of their games. I've only watched a handful from EMEA Masters. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on him. Yes, I still have like a bit of research I have to do, but from watching his games at EMEA Masters, it felt like at moments he was just going that little bit too far, over aggressive. Like, I saw some Talia walls that I wasn't the biggest fan of. So I'm a bit nervous about Vladi, and I think it'll be on the team to kind of wrangle him back a bit and be like, no, don't go so far forward, because there was a lot of times where like a Thresh Lantern was the only thing that really saved him. So I'm hoping that Vladi comes in well, but as you say, I'm a bit nervous that we're going to see kind of the same thing that happened with Seiken, which is, hey, this is a guy that looked decent in EMEA Masters, but decent doesn't really cut it when you're moving up to the LEC level. And if your mid lane starts to fall apart, your entire team crumbles. Like, you need a mid laner that can compete at the LEC level, because otherwise you just lose pushing mid. You'll start to get roamed on by too many of these players that are then influencing top, influencing bot lane. Your jungler can't really do anything. Like, mid lane is such a core part of a team that Vladi kind of needs to step up and hit the ground running, and that's a huge amount of pressure to put on someone who's only just coming into the league. So I'm curious how it's going to go, and I'm not like wishing for his downfall. I hope that Karmine Corp are able to bring it back around, but I'm a little bit nervous for Vladi coming in.
I mean, it's essentially like it's a full reset in the middle of the year with a nice amount of time, depending on how quickly they're able to get the players together to scrim, because obviously MSI is going on and they dropped out pretty early. But it's never going to be 100% ideal, slight adjustments. So we'll just have to hope that the magic sparks there. We'll talk about KC in the tier list later, because this is a team that has big ambitions but has no championship points. So they have to. In the past, in summer, you could have said, "Hey, making top 6, making top 8, like not good by KC expectations, but not terrible. Oh, now you're top 5, like sick, like that's progress. Now it's top 3 or die, right?" And that's a brutal position to be in with new players. And the good news is almost everyone on this roster except for Vladi is a veteran of top leagues. So I don't think that they're going to crumble under the pressure, but it is a lot for the team in the lineup. Shifting our attention to SK, we have 3 more total. 2 of them are on SK, Rahel and Luon, both of the LCK Challenger Leagues. And luckily for us, we happen to know an expert on LCK Challenger, and that is Chronicler. So he kind of helped me out with some info to prep for these guys. And I think in similar fashion, like, he said a lot of stuff like he did for Juhan that I was like, I don't know if you're selling this guy. Like, you're saying, the words you're saying don't necessarily line up with your value proposition that you're saying. But I think there's a lot of optimism for Rahel, because this is a guy who he did most notably play with Thanatos, who's obviously just this known like prodigy quantity in the top lane, found a lot of success alongside him, and in a sense found a decent amount of success without him. So this is a guy who I think has developed a lot over the years, watched back a lot of the games that Mount told me to watch, got a good insight into how he works. Very talented mechanically, baseline, very good laner. And I think that's exactly what SK wanted from bringing in a Korean bot lane, right? I think that his last series that he played in the year wasn't the most convincing. He did die a lot 2v2. This is a guy who came up exclusively through the Downwan training program, academy, LCKCL. Like, he looks solid. And if what you want is a mechanically solid player, like, he looks pretty solid. There are still a lot of questionable moments, no doubt in my mind, but he looks all right. Luon, on the other hand, was on a good team. They played good as a team. I think the biggest skepticism coming in from Mao that I'm just going to echo here is that it's hard to rate him because he was a part of a Nongshim roster that was very much felt like more than the sum of its parts, and it was a lot of their teamwork and cohesion that allowed them to be successful. So how he will fit in this team is a big question, because unlike maybe like a Jonghoon or someone else who's come out of CL in the past, it's not like he had a particularly flashy or standout play style. He wasn't necessarily the guy making or kicking off big plays or being that maniac that really like took over the games.
Yeah, so I had a chance to look at a couple of their VODs. For Rahel, unfortunately, it was the series that apparently Chronicler said was doo-doo. So maybe that's making me a little bit biased, but definitely when I looked at the laning phase for him, I kind of felt a little bit like he was pushed up in lanes that he didn't need to be pushed up in. So there was like, hey, the wave is going to push into you. You're not going to lose any creeps as this wave is coming in. You can just play it back and you're against Lucian Nami. As soon as you walk up, you're going to get poked. But he would still kind of walk into a position that would let him get half healthed and then mess up his reset times and everything. So I'm a little bit curious about the laning phase, because especially when I looked at Luon as well. Luon, a little bit of a maniac. When I looked at his laning phase, I was like, oh, you just want to hit people. It doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. You just want to be in range to hit people at all points in time. And even seeing him play like the same matchup twice in a row, he would kind of just try and do the same thing and hope it worked out slightly differently. So I am curious how strong this bot lane is going to be.
Yeah.
But I do think if they can get past the laning phase, I think you've got a solid, people that can play a team fight well, and mechanically, I think you're going to fulfill your role. But it does say to me that this is probably not a bot lane that you're going to look to play around. I think it'll be more of this team just leans into the irrelevant carry more now with this bot lane.
Yeah, I think that's a safe evaluation. I think it's clear from watching, again, the SK put out a content piece about integrating them, and they're taking all these steps. They're making them try currywurst. It's very cute. You should go check it out. Rift Nights, I think episode 7 is the name of the video. But when people talk about and review these players, they're like, this guy's good at engages and this guy has good hands. You know what I mean? There's not And I think that's kind of what SK signed up for, right?
Luon definitely looked more comfortable on engaged champions than enchanters.
Well, and I think that that's when SK, when we look at what their team needed, I think Exekick and DOS, again, when they found that razor's edge where they were both performing, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
And then there were games where they were way too aggressive or way too passive. And, I'm bummed for them, because I do think that this last split was so terrible. I would have loved for them to go out with a bit more of during one of their flashy splits. But obviously then the swap wouldn't have made sense, and that's just kind of the nature of competition. But if these guys can fulfill their role cleanly and they allow the team to, because they're reliable and they can do what they need to do reliably, allow the team to put their focus in other areas, whether that's in terms of development or in terms of strategy, like playing around topside, that's probably a big boon for SK. And SK aren't, back at the pack in terms of championship points. And so I think single placements really matter for them, right? Because they are ahead of only 6 teams go to season finals, right? And 2 of those teams right now 2 of the 10 teams have 0 points. So every little thing you can do to get a higher placement gets you one step closer to that season finals. And if this is what SK think does it for them, I totally can understand why. But again, a bit of an unknown quantity. We'll see how they make the transition over, how they integrate into the team. Might be better than we expect. That's what I will say, because again, everything Chronicler said about Jun made me think Jun is not going to be that great, and Jun is probably the best, or at least top 3 support in our league.
I think he's the best. Yeah, I think it's fair.
Which is crazy, right? Yeah. Unless if Alvaro turns it on again like he did in winter, and Mickey and Hylissang are both showing up, obviously the conversation gets more complicated. But in recent memory, outside of the Mickey X Poppy or Leona games, Jun's a beast. Jun's a monster. So maybe we get some of that same level of talent brought in from the LCKCL. The last piece of the puzzle is Lyncas promoted from KC Blue and brought over to Vitality to be their jungler, replacing Douglas.
I'm going to start off. Trying to research this man was a pain. because every single VOD I've watched of him in this EMEA Masters was a bloody lane swap. So I was like, let me see what Lyncas' early pathing is like. Well, I don't know what it's like because all he did was clear one side of the, I won't say that word, map.
That's fine.
It was just
you get one.
But yeah, everything I've heard about this man is that he's an absolute beast. He is super, super hyped to be coming up. I am very, very excited to see him just because of the general thrum around him. Everyone seems to be talking about this is the next coming of the jungle god. So I'm very hyped to see what this man can do.
Yeah, I agree. Like, look, this is a guy who, like, if you told me someone on KC Blue had to get promoted to the main roster, this is the guy I would have promoted over Vladi, probably. Like, this guy's looks like a threat. Obviously, the lane swaps are very annoying. But also...
To be fair, his dives were sick. Just, I'm learning nothing about how you path.
I think that this is also a guy who is very consistently, like... a lot of the players that are getting promoted aren't, like, consistent high placers, or if they are, they're usually attached to a player who then like goes on to achieve great things in the LEC. So it's hard to like say that they're a concrete part of our success. But this guy's joined a lot of different rosters, right? Whether it was Dusty, whether it was Gamers Origin, or now KC, like he's very consistently getting top 8 in EMEA Masters, which is a difficult thing to do because you have to place well domestically and then you also have to play well in that tournament. And so this is a guy who the results look solid, the play looks pretty solid. And like individually, he's clearly very gifted. And I also think from Vitality as a team, they were really close to like being our second best team, right? And I think that Douglas, while he did have some highlight moments, was like I think it's probably hard to be Douglas on that roster, right? Like it's tricky to navigate all those personalities and like support in the best way possible. And Douglas, like in a lot of games where he wasn't given these like basically rel or brand, right? Like looked pretty lost and not super impactful on the early game. And so if you have a guy who comes in with a bit more oomph behind him, a bit more hype, and obviously into a coaching staff where I think they're very good at utilizing the pieces that they have, I'm excited for Lyncas. And I don't think that this roster is going to be the Lyncas show, and I don't think that it needs to be. I think he just needs to be a little bit more consistent and more reliable than Douglas was. And we're looking at a team that is fighting for top 2, top 3, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, and watching Mac's video on it, he was saying, hey, look, this is the reason that we wanted Lyncas to come in is because he's got that growth mindset and he's willing to be incredibly flexible. And even looking at his, old champion pool, it was way more carries. And then as we started to drift in towards later years, it's become more tanks. So this is definitely a guy that is willing to do what is best to see the team succeed. And I think that's kind of what Vitality need, because I think you need someone that's going to, and even Carzy said it on stream several times, like if you're on Vitality, you need someone who's going to follow Hylissang. Like Hylissang is going to make the play, the team needs to follow. And I think that's something that Lyncas will be able to bring to the team, because there were a couple of times where I'd watch VODs and like, oh, you can see that Hylissang wants to go and do this, but Douglas has already drifted off and then is late to what Hilly wants to do. So I think someone that's going to be a bit more in tune with what Hylissang wants to try and achieve is what Vitality need. Yeah. And I'm hoping that Lyncas is that. And the guy's been grinding for, I think, 3 years in EURLs to try and get to this position. He's 20 years old. So I'm excited to see what he can try and do here, because it feels like if he can bring that same mindset, or at least the mindset that Vitality believe he has, I think this could be the upgrade that they need to really become that top 2 team.
I agree. That does it for our roster changes. To recap, let me just get my list here. The Antonio in for Otawamne, Juhan in for Peach. On KC, we've got Canna closer and Vladi replacing Cabochard, Bo, and Saken. SK, Rahel, and Luon are replacing Exkick and Doss. And on Vitality, Lyncas is replacing Douglas. And now, we have some questions from Twitter, but we're going to answer those at the end of the episode. For now, we're going to get into our tier list so we can decide what our top teams look like. And to kick things off, I'd like to start with the teams that we've already talked about a little bit. So the Fnatic and G2s of the world, as well as any of the teams with roster swaps. Rob, I will give the sales pitch, and then you will rate, and we'll go back and forth. Okay. Does that sound?
Yeah.
Let's start with the easy one. G2, still the best domestically. Probably not undisputed number 1 in all positions, but certainly top 2 in every single position. And maybe a worse top 3, and clearly an overall team play a step ahead of every other team in the league, except for maybe Fnatic on a really good day. So, G2, where are you rating them, Rob?
I think D is probably where.
Yeah, I agree.
S, yeah, it's. I mean, the elevator pitch kind of said it all. It's this is the best team. They're by far.
We will have a lot of time to talk about G2. I don't want it to be like we're not talking enough about G2 and what they're doing. But I think that the expectation for this split is that a lot of what is our story for our league is like, can you make season finals and can you beat G2? Yeah. And like the task of beating G2 is something we'll dissect more as the week goes on and we see how they fit into the current meta. But like they are the big bad of our league right now.
Sorry, I think it's also, can you beat G2? And then actually place high, because Rogue keeps beating G2.
Yeah. Can you beat G2 in a game where it matters, right? Like, please, best of ones do not count. I'm sorry. They're cool. They sow these little seeds of hope for the like, oh, we might have a little bit of a close. Like, no. You got to beat them in a best of, I think. And you got to beat them consistently enough to make it to the next stage and then maybe beat them. And like beating them in finals, I think is a really tall task. But, we need to see how these teams level up and see if they can do it. But for now, G2 is the arch enemy of our league, or the challenge that I think every team, if your goal is to make it far, like G2 are the measuring stick right now. And that's a very privileged position to be in. And I hope that by the end of the split that that's not the case, and that it's like a much more contentious, like much more of a question on people's mind, like who is going to win LEC. But right now there's like, dude, there's no argument. Like they're the best team.
And that's the thing is, I want to see teams like Fnatic really step it up to become like go back to what was G2 versus Fnatic, always battling it out for that. Yeah. Because it feels like Fnatic are and honestly, actually, that's not fair. Vitality as well.
Vitality, MDK, if they can bring back some of that interplay. Like there are teams that have consistently contesting G2 has not happened for a while. Because even Fnatic, right, like looked a little bit lost in the first split, looked much better in the second split. Last year was a train wreck, right, up until they were able to make that deep run. Like I want to see a level of consistency from the teams that are going to surround them in that top four so that it always feels close.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm hoping that what G2 learns at internationals, they bring back, then you get beat by the measuring stick a little bit, but then you kind of look at your own play and go, oh, this is why they punished us, let's not do that. And then it kind of levels up the region as a whole. But I do definitely think there are like teams like Fnatic and Vitality that can make it, but it still feels like G2 are just head and shoulders above everyone else.
And they're not infallible, but if both come in on a similarly prepped day, like G2 are always going to have the edge, right? Who do you want to go for next? Roster swap team, or let's hit the ones, because those are the ones are the quick ones. Those ones are the easy ones. We'll save the ones we haven't talked about, I'd say, for actually screw it. Tell me whoever you want, Rob.
I was just going to say, let's just do Fnatic since we just mentioned them.
What's your sales pitch for Fnatic?
The Juhan is an absolute beast. I mean, I love this man. I think he is absolutely sick. It is so cool to watch him. So yeah, I think Fnatic as a whole have shown that they can step up to, and they won't beat G2, but can at least contest them in a lot of situations. And I think that this is where, if we continue to see the growth that we have from Fnatic, I really do think they're able to consistently, I should say, get finals. And I think that's why I think Fnatic for me is like A tier. Yeah. But I think this is a squad that is only going to continue to level up. And when all the pieces are operating at full value, like this team is actually insane. Like when you get the best out of every single one of these players, like this is a team that looks so good.
Yeah. And I still think that consistency is a concern for me in a longer season. But like when it comes to just straight evaluation of players, like even if Noah had, I think, a pretty bad MSI overall, like domestically, he still can be a monster. And sometimes, like, yes, he needs specific champions to be successful. Like, he's still, I don't think, the most reliable AD carry. Like, there's a couple different names I'd put above him on like a pure AD carry tier list, but like he does his job really well domestically. And Fnatic as a whole, like Razork Humanoid are still one of the most lethal mid-jungle duos. Like, and the Caps portion of the G2 mid-jungle duo is doing a lot of work when that comes to like talking about how lethal that mid-jungle is, right? So like these guys no one else really matches them there, right? And even like some of the other teams that are going to be near the top of this discussion are going to be strong for different reasons. It's not going to be because of mid-jungle. So it's really just this team, super lethal, super scary. Like if anyone is going to step up and contest G2, I'm so bad at MacBooks, bro. I keep like accidentally, no, I haven't set up.
Yeah, I feel bad for. So I had my laptop in my bag over at Chengdu, and we had to take out our little deck place things, but the
for identification to get in the venue.
And I ended up dropping my bag, so my laptop is now bust, which is why I got my little.
You're fine, little tablet. I'm just bad at Macintosh Touch. This is the first Mac I've had in like since 2012, so I'm just a boomer.
I've never had one. I've actually never owned an Apple product.
I buy them to stop me from playing video games, or request them to stop me from playing video games on my laptop, because I appreciate that separation of workspace, and which is weird because I talk about League of Legends for a living, right?
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
whatever, it's not the Daniel Dracos therapy session power hour, right? We're gonna push on. So yeah, I think we've kept it brief on Fnatic, but I think like the fact that we've gotten to see so much of them in MSI means that there's a lot of recent tape. What form they come in is still a question. This is not a team that I'm like always 100% confident is going to show up, but the best version of Fnatic is a top team in our league and is a team that can beat G2 in a series when they're firing on all cylinders. Like they are that team. That said, like G2 have been, and partially because of their consistency in the mid game, especially, like you always will bet on G2.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that Fnatic, can't do it. And that's a team that I still think is like super, super lethal. So let's talk about KC. We already talked about the roster changes a little bit, and I think they've got the most changes. And this is what I'll say. I think. Oh man, this is okay. So Canna, as you highlighted, great topside. Closer knows how to play with the Korean topside. I'm not even that worried about it. I think Closer as a leader for a team with Canna and Upset, as much as I know people are tired of hearing us say like, oh, this is it. This is the time for Upset. I still believe Upset is very good, despite the hiccups on this team, right? Like, I think Closer being a leader for those two players with Targa and Vladi doing whatever they need to do to contribute in the game meaningfully. I think that team is strong. I think this team is a threat. I think top 3 is a tall task, but I think that this is a team that will ruin somebody's run. And I think this is a team that will be top 5 by the end of the split.
So I think they are a team that can ruin a run, but I've seen teams ruin runs that are still bottom of the table.
They can also ruin their own run, as they have done for the last 2
like
splits.
You could be bottom of the table and still ruin a run.
They're like, this is a team that I think will dream crush. And this is like, I don't want to say that they'll be top 3 because that's what they need to do to get season finals. No. I think saying they are guaranteed to make season finals is absolutely a psycho take. But this to me will be a top 5 team by the end of this. By the end of this split, I think this is a top 5 team.
I'm just not on the same. I
agree. I feel it in my bones, and it's a little bit crazy, Rob, because there's no tape to support it, but like instinctually,
I just have no faith in Targa.
But you don't have to. And I think that's the thing is like, yes, Targa doesn't speak. And it's a very big red flag for me that he, in a role that is supposed to communicate, does not communicate. And that that has been very public that is a problem. I think Closer will speak enough to make up for it. And I like really believe in Canna and Upset.
So the biggest problem that I have is, I agree. I think Upset is very, very good. I just don't think this is his time. And I think
to be fair, it's never really like, it's almost never been. It's like, that's why people get tired when we're like, we swear he's good. It'll happen. He's like, him and Patrick are holding hands into the abyss as they slowly fall out of people's minds. And you're like, wait, isn't he still good? And you're like, yeah, but
But the problem that I see, so I don't think although Upset is very, very good, I don't think the bot lane is where you can play around. And I think a lot of that is just because I don't think they really look like they're on the same page. So maybe with all this practice they've had, it's turned it around.
Some good 2v2s though. Like one of the only good parts about the early game was that they found some 2v2 kills and they played some 2v2 wells. Like I don't trust him to roam at all, but like I trust their 2v2.
Yeah,
Rob.
But it's like if Closer. So the way I see this team operating, if I'm looking at it, is Closer plays around Canna top lane on carries and tries to get them going, and that could be a successful operation. The problem is that then you've got Canna who is trying to then direct how the game is played so that then he can be facilitated. And I just don't know if that language barrier is going to be overcome within the first little while, right? And I think that's where we're going to start to see a lot of issues. So I can see this team basically doing what Karmine Corp have done best, is have a good early game and then have no idea what to do with it. And I think that's probably what we're going to see again.
I mean, to be honest, it's like, this has to be a full reset. And if they play the way that, the only tape we have on them is bad. So to me, I'm looking at this as essentially a new team. I did obviously take into account what the 2v2 looks like, but like
I think they're C.
They're C?
I think they're C.
I'll say, because I want to put them B, but I'll take C.
I think they're C, yeah.
C is a measured middle ground. If I wasn't here, would you have put them D tier? Or was C generally where you think they belong?
No. No. I think they are a C. I think they are barely making playoffs that's where I have them.
That's top 8.
Top 8, yeah. Yeah, so they're C. That's why you want them at like high C. I have them like middle to low C.
Yeah. I think they're going to be good.
I am excited
relative.
to be
Who
wrong.
do they beat?
Like I want to be wrong.
Like they're better than Giants.
Like I'm not coming into this like
they're better
when
than
I do
Rogue.
these tier lists, I'm not looking at this going, I want to be right. I want to be like, hey, this team that isn't like Z tier team is gonna suck, and I want to be right about this. I want to be wrong. Like I want to see this team work really well together and be able to come back to you in like 2 weeks time and go like, actually this team is sick, and I'm super excited to see what they can continue to do.
I like when teams subvert our expectations.
Yeah, and there definitely could be with the sheer like power that you have on this team and like raw capabilities with like Canna, closer, upset, like those are the three I'm looking at and be like, they can be like just the magic that you need on Karmine Corp. But until I see it happen, it's very hard for me to just say, oh yeah, they're just going to be able to come in and immediately click and immediately look good. Like that, I just don't see happening.
I think immediately look good is fair.
Yeah.
If you wanted to say just week 1 KC, I'd put them D. Like no question. They're going to
But that's the thing is like you only have 3 weeks.
I mean,
that's the thing. Like if you don't make it.
But you only have to make. All right. I don't want to spoil too far ahead. But like, yeah. Okay, I'm with you. I think C is fair. I think that is the more measured version. I think B is probably too optimistic. Talking to you about it now makes me realize I might be a psycho. But I am more excited for this team than I have been all year. The start of the year with Bo, up until we watched that team be an absolute disaster for a week. I was excited for week 1 of the start of the year for winter, and then I have not been excited since. I am excited again for KC. Also because I know no matter what happens, there will be drama, which is great.
I am excited to see this team. I just can't put them high until I see it.
All right. We have 2 teams with 2 rosters. Do you want to talk about GX, SK? Where do you want to go? We can talk about, we talk about anyone at this point. I don't really
Let's go SK. Yeah.
SK Gaming. New bot lane.
Yeah.
Niski was an MVP in some games, an absolute liability in other games, irrelevant MVP in some games, also liability. Like overall, Isma pretty good. Like their bot lane was individually their worst part, their biggest liability.
So
but
I think this is going to be the revitalization. I think SK needed a change because I think as we got towards the end of the split, you could see that there was nothing there. Everyone was just
okay. But I'm with you. But let's talk. Remember that when we talked about SK last season, dear audience, that what they did better than any other team in the league was lose unlosable games, right? And it's like that.
But where did that throw come from?
It wasn't Exa kicking dogs.
That's
Like you want to say that they weren't doing well enough in their individual roles and that they threw sometimes. I'm with you. Niski threw a lot of games, bro.
And Irrelevant had some weird engages.
Yes.
There were some. But I think that is a symptom of the discoordination that was there. Yeah. Right. And I think that this is where if we're allowed to use this for other teams, I think this is the team I actually look at where it's probably one that is surprisingly going to be effective. But this is like my pinch of salt for it, where I think it's like, hey, this is going to be a good move to try and reset mindsets and have that. But this is the other side of the coin. I think that not having a bot lane that you can hard play around as this squad is going to be tough. Because I think when I look at Niski's been very vocal of, I want to play for sides, I want to get out, I want to roam, I want to help people. I don't see Rahel and Luon as a lane that is going to, if you give the resources, have that pop off. I don't see like Rahel as being like a Karzi, where if I give Karzi resources, Karzi's going to hard carry this game, and then at the end of it, he's going to be like, guys, you got to take next when I'm tired.
I'm a sleepy boy. Yeah.
I don't see that being this for SK, so I think this becomes only more of the, we're all in on Irrelevant. And don't get me wrong, Irrelevant has looked great when he's on things like the Jacks and these kind of things where he can carry.
Renekton pretty good too.
Yeah, the Renekton's been decent, but we have also seen the opposite side where he hasn't looked as good. So my biggest worry for this team is that taking Exakick out doesn't give you a carry that you can now play around. Because even if when Exakick looked good, basically replace this with every winter when Exakick came out of hibernation and he was hungry and got fed. But I think this is where you're missing out for SK. I don't know how you try and play heavily around this bottom side. And if you do, well, then it only becomes an Irrelevant show, and that becomes something teams can shut down.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think for me, I don't know is the underlying sentiment around the bottom lane, right? Because I think if they are good enough mechanically, and they're just really strong in 2v2 and they just want to put resources down there to just enable them to do their things. Like, I think front to back, if they can set up themselves, we talked earlier about like GX being a front to back. Like this is a team that could be a front to back team.
Yeah.
For a similar reason, right? Just in inverse. Whereas GX are like our bot side is good, everyone else is going to play to them. It's like our top side is good, our bot side is solid, and we're just going to pour resources into them to set them up.
Yeah.
I think it can work, but I'm similarly skeptical to you. I am not. I understand like loosely as much as SK has given us context, like why or publicly, like why they would want this change. But until I see it manifest on stage, I'm not 100%. And given how, like I don't know why I'm giving KC the benefit of the doubt on the mental reset and not SK, but it was so egregious. Like KC were terrible, just awful. SK won so many games and threw them away, and that is sticking with me way more. Like, I'm way more willing to give a team that has just been bad a clean slate than a team that was good and then just not disciplined enough to finish games well. Like, that, to me, that haunts me a bit, and I'm not willing to let that go. And so, like, I think I would put SK alongside KC.
Yeah, I was about high C. I think they are above Carmine Corp.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they're C. I think this for me is a team where my vision for these guys is that we end up with like an Ari or something like that for Niski in the mid lane. You've got Luon and Engage. Rahel is actually playing something like a Jin, and you've got a relevant on a Camille or a Kari or a Jax, like that kind of stuff. And like that's how I see this team operating. If that's not the vision, I think this is a weird team.
I mean, I'm gonna wait to see the vision. It's just like the pieces are weird right now. If they full mental reset and like bot lane's a really good role player, again, I can see this team like really contesting, like they did in a lot of those games that they threw, right? Like they were really dominant in so many early games. So annoying to watch this team throw. Like it was funny the first 2 times, and after that, you're like, we get it. Like please just close a game, man. So I hope for their sake that this is the reset that they need, and like. For now, I'm approaching them, and it seems like we both are with a lot of skepticism. But we just kind of need to see what the form looks like for the top side, and also how specifically the overall team wants to leverage these two new players. Yeah. Next up is Giant X.
So this is probably my D tier team. I'm not excited by this roster. I feel like, look, the Antonio, you're coming in. Unfortunately, this is a downgrade from me from Odo Omne. I feel like Odo had more flexibility when it came to his champion pool. I think he had the veterancy there. And I don't feel like the Antonio, so the reason is I'm looking at the top laner picks for LPL at the moment, which is running. Now, obviously, this is take it with a pinch of salt. It's Fearless draft,
yeah, but still.
But it's like you've got a Cassante who's in with a sub 30% win rate. So Cassante, not great. But Skarner is your other tank. And then outside of that, you're into TF, Jax, Camille, Rumble, Renekton, Kennen, all as your next top plate. Yeah. And it's like, these aren't champions that I look at and go, the Antonio, you're going to do really well in this one. So I think this is where I see that starting to fall down. And then Juhan, I just don't know enough about to be able to make the decision on. And the rest, I'm just not that excited about.
Yeah, I just don't. To me, like, if you tell me that the atmosphere was the biggest problem in the previous split, because remember that they made it in 6th, technically, 4-5. It was a really big struggle at the bottom of the table, if people don't remember. It was very close at the end of our spring season, right? Lost to Fnatic, lost to Mad Lions Koi. I think parts of that Mad Lions Koi series felt very winnable, but it felt like total collapse, right? Kind of in those last few series from GX. But I just don't think that these pieces are better on paper, and I don't think that this team was. They had a couple sparks, really. They had a couple games where they really did good stuff, but I think that I think you're going to run into the same communication issues that we talked about Odo Omne with on the podcast. Like Peach's language barrier was a big problem, and it had been getting better. And I don't know if the same is true from Juhan. And watching Juhan, I think what you hope for when you bring in international talent to an ERL is that they're going to monster their role.
Exactly.
And that is not, and I didn't watch every game, right? I have watched a smattering of games. I've watched a couple series, but Juhan to me, yes, he's had some great moments. Yes, he's had some great fights. Mechanically, he's a very good player, but it is not clear to me that he is on the same page as his team. And that feels like the exact same problems you had with Peach, right? And so you can spin the tale, and you talked about it earlier that he works really well with Ignar.
That's the hope.
Yeah, we saw in those games where it was Rel jungle with Ignar also on an engage support that it came together for GX and was beautiful. in that one circumstance, and everything else was a hot mess. And it's like maybe they find that level of click with more champions more regularly. And this is a team that is really smart, really good on the map. I can see that, but
it's
like the pieces are worse, and this team barely figured it out in the final weeks of regular season to get into playoffs in the first place, right? So I can't, even if Juhan is marginally better than Peach, it's not enough, right? And I do think the Antonio is at least marginally, if not significantly worse than Ottawamne, depending on your take on Ottawamne. So it's just like, it would be weird for me. Like, you could make an argument for C, but to me, D feels right.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's if I look at this team and think, in the best case scenarios, like everything goes perfectly to plan, I still don't see them having like the big carry, the ability to take control of a game and just run amok with us. Like, I think, look, everyone kind of looks at Patrick, but I think, let's be real, Patrick, you've had a ton of time to find that team and be the guy. You haven't really stepped up to do it. I think at this stage, I'm kind of like, look, you will fulfill the role, you're not going to carry. Jackie's, it's too much to put onto a rookie, and I don't think he's really found what he wants to be as a mid laner yet. Like, we still see him bringing out the Akali and trying to carry, hasn't really happened. I think the Nikos have worked well for him and he has had good moments, but it's not like I look at Jackie's going, every single fight we go into, he's going to be the guy. And I don't look at Juhan or the Antonio to step up and take that role either. So even in the best case of scenarios, I just don't see this as a team that's really going to crack top 5.
Yeah, I think, look, this team can make top 8. And I think that, for me, I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think the spark on this team is Ignar. And if Ignar can translation that, so that's also Juhan, like, that's enough for me, because I do still think that while Upset and Patrick, again, are hand-holding off into the darkness, as everyone slowly forgets, like, the many times that we have built them up to be, like, big heroes, I do still think that he is an incredibly skilled player individually. But he is approaching the nuke, what I'm now going to refer to as the nuke duck threshold, which is that, like, every year we hear from every single pro player, this guy is so good in scrims, he's so smart about the game, yada, 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 and then the results never materialize, right? And so I think both Upset and Patrick are past that point. So the potential is there. I will still give them the potential of how great they can be, but I did bet on Upset, but I don't, and I would bet a little bit on Patrick, but I think the pieces that Patrick are working with are just worse. And we'll just have to see. But I agree. Or I guess we'll have to D. I can't click. It's taking too long. No! MacBook.
It'll get there. Don't worry.
There we go. Anyway, D tier.
Beautiful.
For Giants. The last team with changes is Vitality. We talked a little bit about Lyncas. This team was dangerously close to being really great. They're a bit inconsistent. They're a bit messy. I think, and we have talked about this, I think we voted, Cardsy's probably the best AD carry in our league. He's the best AD carry in our league.
So good.
Hylissang is still up and down, certainly, creating variable amounts of space, sometimes for himself, sometimes for the enemy team. Photon is still an incredible top laner. I think Lyncas is a strict upgrade. VTO is a guy who's had some standout moments I still would like to see more from, but this is, to me, this is probably third, maybe fourth best team in the league. So
I'm a little bit higher on these guys because I think looking at meta, this team, this is their moment to pop off. Like, Photon was arguably top 2, if not the best top laner that we had last split.
Yeah.
And now we're going into carries, which is what he likes. So we've got Camille.
I will say,
he's just not Akshan.
No. It's not just not Akshan. I will say, Rob, I'm with you on a theoretical level. And our best indicator of what the meta is going to look like currently is LPL, because that is what it's running. But from an LEC perspective, we have never been on the same page from a top lane meta perspective with the LPL. It's not to say those champions aren't good. And I think if anyone is going to play those champions, it's players like Canna, players like Photon. BB, I think, will push himself there too. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get the watered down version of the top lane meta where it's like, rather than trying to beat the Skarner or trying to play an aggressive pick, you just handshake on scaling. And I want you to be right, because I think this is the better version of the meta, but I just that's my
I do agree, but I still think we'll see Photon go, hey, I can play Rumble into this. I can do these kind of things, right? And I think that's where Photon will be able to shine. So I think either way, Photon will be good, right? I think Photon will still have a great split. Akarzy going into a crit AD carry meta, or where AD carries are strong, He's
They
the
are
guy.
strong.
You want that guy, right?
Yep.
As a man who got one shot by a Caitlyn as a Nami one day.
Yeah, 80
Caitlin's
carries. They don't. A lot of the tank shred stuff has been taken out, but the damage to squishies is through the roof.
Yeah, the fact you can get 100% crit on 4 items is just
It's strong.
insane.
It's very
and
strong.
one of them is a collector.
Yeah, and if your champion has any kind of built-in crit scaling, it gets pretty ridiculous pretty quick.
Yeah, so I think the big question about this team is not whether they can perform, it's how Lyncas and Hilly work together. And that's the one that I'm looking at. And if we're going off of Lyncas, at least in my mind, is an upgrade, and I think most people are looking as an upgrade, it feels inevitable that this team is going to end up as top 3, if not top 2. And I think it now becomes a question of Vitality versus Fnatic for that second place is now actually the big battle in my head for this split. And that's what I'm going to be keeping my eyes on.
I think that's a fair take. I'm inclined to agree. A tier is where we're...
Yeah. If I could sandwich Vitality and Fnatic on top of each other, that's where my A tier is. I think that these are the two teams that are... this is the battle for the finals for me. And I'm very excited to watch this team, in particular Lyncas. Like if they... And even talking to... I wasn't talking to Karzi. Looking at Karzi's stream, Karzi was like, we are smashing scrims. So obviously take that with whatever you want, but if this team is working well together and you're starting to get all the fights go their way and Karzi gets to basically be the carry that he wants to be, like this is a terrifying team.
I agree. I'm ready for this team. Look, we've gone on for quite some time on the podcast. I don't want to speed run these last 4 teams, but we're going to have to be a little bit brief here for people at home. Because I'm bad at time management. And you'd think after I've done this for a gajillion years, I'd be better. I'm not. I've probably gotten worse.
We're also casters, and you give
we're
us
also
a
casters,
mic, and
we're
we just
allowed
talk.
to talk. And there's no one screaming in my ear to shut up. So we have 4 teams left: Team Heretics, Rogue, BDS, Mad Lions. For those of you in podcast land, I'm sorry I haven't kept you up to date. The tier list thus far is G2 and S tier, A tier, currently Fnatic and Vitality. B tier is unoccupied as of now. C tier is KC and SK, and D tier is Giant X. There are 4 teams left, so Team Heretics, Rogue, BDS,
We can make
Mad.
a very quick one.
Is it Rogue?
It's Rogue. In
Bro,
D tier.
the easiest D tier of my life. I am sorry to the players, but this was...
Also, happy birthday yesterday, Finn.
Happy birthday, Finn. And we love Finn, friend of the podcast. He promised us that he would bring life into this team, and he failed. This team,
he's trying his damnedest, though.
He's trying. This team is slow. Their drafts are boring. The way they play the game is slow. They have not made any changes despite 2 abysmal splits. There are players on this team that are good and have been shown multiple times to be good players. And for whatever reason, this particular cocktail of organization and players on the roster is not working. And look, if you want to talk about upward potential, this team could be good.
But that's why I have the vendetta against them. Because you have the bloody potential. You have everything you need to be good.
Who is a psycho. The one thing he is good at is ganking a lot.
Yeah. And it drives me insane because it feels like you're locking these guys into a prison of not being able to do anything with the squad.
That's what I'm trying to understand is who is locking them in?
I don't understand.
Who has chained them?
The fact that you have this squad that should be so good, you have all the pieces that you need to be a top team and you're not, is the reason why it's so frustrating to watch them. And I think that's why we end up being so harsh on them, is because at the end of the day, like if you take any of these players essentially across the board out and stick them onto another team, it feels like an immediate up. Like, well, in and out, but like, it's like they should be top 3, top 4 in the row.
Was our best 80 carry by a country mile. Larson has, many points in his career, been top 2 mid laner in our league. Marcoon has been a top 5 jungler. And in a good game, he is a guy who will single-handedly win you the game with some psycho stuff. Like, Finn is a solid top laner. I'm not going to oversell Finn. Love the guy. We'll say top 5, top 6. Again, good, right? So Elise, too aggressive, has some great moments. But like, just those 3 pieces of Comp, Larson, and Marcoon.
Yeah, it drives me.
That should be enough to contest at the very least playoffs, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah, but nobody works together at all in this team. It feels like a bunch of individuals playing. And
then we didn't see that. Again, right?
But until there's actual mega changes on this team, I'm just forever putting them in D tier. And they're a team that I nearly want to just avoid watching because it just makes me angry seeing that you have this many good pieces and they're just going to waste.
I would love to understand more from the Rogue perspective.
Yeah.
what is going wrong. But at this point for me, as a fan of the league and as a pundit, it is difficult for me to talk about this team because any expectation that has been set for their performance has not been met. And it is hard now to trust that the team knows what they need to do.
But it's also, there's nothing to look at and go, this is, oh, you fix this, it all gets better. Like, it's not like you're messing up a mid-game. It's not like you're over-aggressive in an early stage. There's nothing that really happens, and then you lose.
And in the good games, like, look, there's been one or two shimmers, but then it all completely falls apart in the next game, and it's like, it's roguelike. And again, I feel for the players here. I hope that they at least, like, even if we as the public don't get to the level of insight that I would like to have to give me more optimism in this team, I hope that the players at least know, and the staff at least know what they need to do, and that they're so close to cracking it so they can come out and be like, here, this was the issue. We solved it. We're great now. Or at least we're competing, right? Because to watch a team...
Look, we can yap about this.
Yeah, fail and die quietly. It's not great, right? And that's the situation that Rogue are in. Again, would love to be wrong, but that's what it is. I'll start one. BDS. I don't know if BDS are ever going to be the best team in our league, but I think that they have proven over many, many splits of... Obviously, summer last year was a bit of a flop, but then they made season finals. They did good in spring. They've been consistently in the top. I think this team is like... I would put them A tier.
Yeah.
With a grain of salt that I don't think this team will ever be S tier.
No.
Like, short of like some miraculous performance or some level of growth that we have
not seen. Short of two idiots putting them S tier in one
short
tier
of
list.
Short of them being put by two complete morons in S tier on an absolute copium binge, I don't know if this team will ever be S tier. It would require a level of development that we've never seen from them, even though they did experiment a bit last season. But this team is good. They know how they play the game. We're coming into a meta where 80 carries are strong. Yes, a lot of what we've seen in LPL is more utility carries, but Ice was good at those too, right? Like, and I think that Nuke has improved. I don't want to oversell this team to you. They are not perfect, but all of their members are solid. They're reliable. They play well as a team. And fundamentally, for the season that this is going to be, where it is a rat race of teams trying to develop or figure out edgy strategies as fast as they can to get wins, to race for that placement to season finals, which is the story for so many of our teams that are not like more or less already locked due to championship points, which is a lot of them. Like, BDS are so set up for success as long as they don't like go crazy and try to reinvent themselves entirely.
Yeah, I definitely have a soft spot for BDS because I love watching this team people, I think, look at them and say, oh, well, they fall back to the same style, which is we get dragons, we get objectives, we're going to play like a very direct team fight style, right? But you can definitely see both individually and as a team the things they are working on and them improving on it. So like Nuke worked in champion pool, suddenly looked much better, right? Like we were saying, oh, we only had these 3 champions, and he started to improve. And Nuke is a player that now, realistically, is probably top 4 for me when it comes to mid laners. Now I would have to look at all the names, but is in the upper half.
It's in that conversation.
Yeah. And looks really, really good. Same when you look at Adam, you can see that he's been slowly improving, working his champion pool, looking significantly better. You can see and Labrov as well had a 6-bit. Basically, across the board, I'm just going to say, look great, and they're improving. Then when you also look at their gameplay, you can see at the start of the split, they started to play these style, which was, hey, I'm going to try and play it through side lane more. And we're going to work on how we understand waves and how we play off of wave states better and how we can set up our side lanes better. And these are things that I'd love to see from a squad that are actionable moments that we're trying to improve on. And that's why I have this soft spot for them, is because you can see how much work they are putting in and how much better their output is getting as a result. And I really, really enjoy that. But I'm still in the same boat where I don't think, like when you look at how good Fnatic have been, do I really see them overtaking? Probably not. With how good I think Vitality are going to look, I don't see them overtaking.
Are they B tier?
No, I think they're the lower end of A tier because I think it's unfair to put them in B tier because I think they are still a step above a lot of the teams.
They're so reliable, right?
Yeah, but it's but I don't see them being able to take on the top 3, right?
I gotta make this so it doesn't look like I had them positioned originally that it looks like they're a mile away from the other teams. Dang. All right, B tier is open, and I have a feeling it's going to be occupied by our next 2 teams. Let's start with Mad Lions. Boy, they have made no changes. It's the Spanish boys in Frescawi. How he got there, we're not sure. Not Spanish. No, actually, like I love all the content they have around memeing about it. He's like the one guy who's not Spanish. This team was insane in winter. I think they kind of bombed in spring. They did have a bit of a resurgence. They're a bit chaotic. I think at one point Alvaro was the best support in our league. I think Supa at one point was in winter like probably the best AD carry and was certainly looked better individually than Hans, even in the finals that they played. Like this is a team that the cursed phrase that is potential applies very, very heavily to this team, but they've completely collapsed in my eyes in spring. Like regardless of how they were, the results they were able to scrape together, they look like a shell compared to how good they were in winter. I do think that the individual components are good. I don't think it was a flash in the pan in winter. I do think they can come back up, but I don't think that it is at their best. I think they're in that A tier. They're contesting the top of the table. They're a team fighting to try to find that final spot with G2. But I don't think that's reliable. I think there should be better than the KCs, the SKs, the Giant X's, the Rogue. Yes, no doubt. They're a clear B tier team, but they are not reliably that. This is a team that by the end of the split could easily be in C. I don't think they will ever go down to D, but this is a team that can move up or down one tier, and it would not surprise me.
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to say they'll move up a tier than they'll go down, especially because I think like this is a team that does play with like Senna and stuff well, which I think is still quite strong in the meta. So I think Supa and Alvaro having that could be really, really good. And I do like the different picks and kind of unique drafts that they bring out, but it definitely still feels, as you say, like they are kind of just sitting just a tier below what are our top four. But I really do hope that they start to bring it back because this is a very fun team to watch. Like Alvaro, I think is sick. I love the picks Miran brings out. Like this is just a cool team to watch.
I like that Supa is so confident. Yeah, I know it's a mix. It's like people are a mixed bag, but like I will take that over PR interviews any day. And I'm invested in Supa one way or another now. Like I need to see how this guy does because he's just made such bold and I think outrageous claims. Right? Like I'm invested. So I like, again, I'm not going to let that affect my rating at all, but this is a guy that I genuinely just want to see where he ends up for better or for worse because of how outspoken he has been about his own assessment of his abilities, right? Like he's gonna shit on Taft, like or whatever. I don't want to paraphrase. Like the quotes are out there. You can read. I don't remember if he was that strongly worded, but like I'm invested in this team. They were really good in winter. They have a lot of personality, and I want to see them find success, as is the case for I think most of the teams on the list. I want to see them show their best version of themselves. I think right now the best version that we've seen is A tier. Don't think that they might make it to finals. I don't think they're contesting G2 as much as really that bottom lane.
I think the biggest problem for Mad Lions Koi is like. They obviously came in as a team coming in from the ERLs and they already had that in base synergy. Yeah. And that's why they looked really good in winter. But as the teams have all started to lock in their own identities and stuff over the course of the year, they just haven't quite been able to hit those high highs. So I think this is definitely a team that can still look very good. It's just trying to hit the mega high highs we saw in winter is going to be tough because teams are now just working well together and have understood what their own style is going to be.
Yeah. It'll be tough. One more team to rank. Again, there's currently one team in B tier. It's Mad Lions Koi. I think the other team joining them is going to be none other. Wait. Well, it's Team Heretics. I'm just going to put them over here. Are you also down for the B tier?
I'm down for the B tier.
Yeah. Team Heretics. What to say? They got better. Remember that before they made playoffs and then they dropped out immediately to finish 7th, 8th.
That was sad.
Now they won a best 5, so they technically finished 5th/6th. They completely collapsed against Fnatic. It was a really horrific series. Trimby especially really struggled. You could see he was super emotional on stage. This is a guy who obviously, like, when the vibe is good is great, and when the vibe is bad, really struggles. I still think this team is better than they were in winter.
Yep.
And I expect them to get a little bit better again here with time. And similar to Mad Lions Koi, it would not surprise me if this is a team that ends up in the top 5 by the end of the split. But this is also a team where I need to see more from them before I'm willing to 100% say they're an A-tier team because of the way that they bombed out. And it wasn't they bombed out. Again, they surpassed their previous result.
Yeah.
But it wasn't nearly as good as I think I expected it to be coming into those best of 3s.
Yeah, I think the pieces are there for this team. Like, this is going to be a team that I think gives you on average, good game. But it's just a case of having those moments where they're still able to have I don't want to say bomb out, but it is the same, where it's like you don't have the mega fall from grace.
Yeah.
So that's where I think if in a good scenario, like Jankos 100% rely on. I think he's a really, really strong jungler. I think you've got Flacket and Wonder are going to be absolutely fantastic. They're going to play essentially what is their role. And then Trimby as well. Trimby on really good days. Like, I was really excited when I saw Trimby first join this team, and we started to see him working with Yankos, from around the map. I was like, this is a really cool style. If you can play off this, being one of the strongest jungle supports in the league, this is a big identity that you can play through. But that started to fall off towards the end of the split. And then Spyro, I think, has been solid. So give him a little bit more time, he can continue to improve. I think he can step up. So there is definitely the parts here to be a solid team. It's just I don't see them going. I think they're just there. I don't think they're going to really dip because you've got the veterancy. I think you're going to get consistent performances. I don't see them dropping down to C tier. But I don't see them rising up to a high A tier.
Do they make season finals? Probably.
Yeah.
I expect them to be a step ahead of a lot of the teams behind them. I believe in them more reliably than I believe in Mad Lions. Like, this is a team that I do not see this team dropping to C under any circumstances. Like, do they rise up to A? It's a bit more contentious, but like, they're not dropping to C. This is a good team. This is a solid team. If Mad Lions drop, like the SA and B tier here, G2, Fnatic, Vitality, BDS, Heretics, like that's our top 5. And like, I think that's a pretty reasonable top 5. And even this is our top 6 right now with Mad Lions in there included for season finals. That would not surprise me. That said, I do still think there's potential for like a KC or an SK to really upset. And for Giant X and Rogue, I don't know, man. We'll just have to see. So this is the final tier list. I'll read through it one more time. LEC 2024 summer tier list as presented by Dagda and Drakos. You're gonna. Some people will flame us.
100%.
We welcome it. Well, we don't welcome it, but like it happens. We have opinions. You're allowed to have opinions. You can phrase your opinions nicely, though. I'll say that Dagda's DMs are open, and you all say a lot meaner stuff in his DMs than you do publicly. So maybe like keep it on like the same tone. That's my only request. Maybe just keep it about the analysis, not about the person. That's my only request. G2, S tier, A tier is Fnatic, Vitality, BDS. With BDS being a little behind the other two, but a consistent contender in that A tier. B tier is Mad Lions, Koi, and Team Heretics. C tier is KC, perhaps because Drakos is too much copium, alongside SK, as there's a bit of skepticism about what their new bot lane is going to bring. D tier is Giant X, as it feels like some downgrades on a team that was already struggling to find their form and consistency. And Rogue, who have changed nothing and remain pretty uninspiring, as much as we'd love to see that change. So that's the tier list. Last order of the day is we asked people to talk to us a little bit about like who they thought was going to make season finals. And again, to recap, season finals is top 6 teams, but the way that it's calculated is it's winners of the split. Simple, because G2 won 2 of them. The top 3 teams that come in from summer, likely that one of those will be G2, so essentially 2 other teams. And then the last slots, the remaining slots being decided based on championship points. So again, no matter who you are, no matter what team you're rooting for, if they make top 3, no matter how bad the previous splits have been, they will make season finals. That's a change from last year. And we'll see what people thought. Let's start with Edward Smallwood from YouTube. My wrong answer will end up being right. KC, Mad, GX, SK, BDS, G2. This is probably impossible, just to set expectations. This is almost
reverse
guaranteed.
Order?
I think it's just these are the 6 teams. I don't think they're in order. I think you just said that mine first. Like, remember that championship points decide placement. So even if, let's say, KC, who have almost no championship points, and like GX, who don't have a lot of championship points either, and like SK all make top 3, I guess it is in theory, but like Fnatic have a lot of points. Mad have a decent amount of points. Like, this is an unlikely setup and would require complete disaster in the standings for this to come true. Like, this is unfathomable, Mr. Smallwood. Like, this is insane. But I'm not gonna that it was out there.
I'd actually be upset if this became true, not because I don't want to see the teams doing well and getting through.
Because you don't want this to represent us at Worlds?
Yeah. Well, no, because then, like, what happened?
Yeah.
So many teams had to completely blow up and go wrong, go disaster. Like, that's just sad.
Or is it the greatest like storyline of all time?
Maybe the glow up is real.
The glow up could be real. If this happens because of crazy timelines, I'm down. I'm up for it. If it happens because of absolute collapse from half of our teams, I will be very sad. But you can earn a lot of points in summer, so I think it's technically not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not going to do the math right now, but that's one. Do you want to read? There's I don't know if you see them there at the bottom. You can also go on.
I'm confused by the J Frost who says G2, G3, G4, G5, G6 vitality.
I think J Frost is trying to make a greater point about the state of our league.
Is G3 heretics?
No, I think the point is it's G2, but then also some credit to vitality, and no one else matters. I think is the sentiment of Mr. Pepe Hands here, J Frost.
Yeah.
Which, like, look, I do still think this is kind of the G2 show. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love still talking about other teams and building up other teams, but the question of who can take down G2, it's a tall task. I don't think anyone is necessarily up for it yet, but I'm hoping that teams can kind of develop.
I think it's unfair not to put Fnatic there, though.
So it should be G2, G3, G4, G5,
Fnatic vitality.
Fnatic vitality.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just a second. So it's like a 3-horse race, or like one horse is clearly going to win, and then the fight for second is up for contention. Based on the J Frost angle. Last one I'll read is from Eeyore at Eeyore718 on Twitter. G2 Fnatic Vitality BDS Mad Lions Heretics. It's our exact top 6 from perfect agreement. We didn't even plan that. The extra context here from Eeyore. Whoever they are, SK and Casey have a shot at their new players go crazy, but Casey basically has to be top 3, so they're certainly doomed. Giant X can't see finishing higher than 8th at best with their changes, and Rogue is just dead probably. We
could have just said that.
Hit us up. Come to the podcast. We clearly line up.
We had problems shutting up when all we had to do instead of doing an hour-long podcast was read this. Yeah.
Eeyore saying...
I don't know if it says a lot, though, that we agree with Winnie the Pooh characters.
Yeah, and also one who is just perpetually depressed. Like, his personality is depression, Eeyore. Not you, the person, the character that you've named after Eeyore. I'm not trying to project too much, although it might be fair assumption when your name is Eeyore and your character image is Eeyore. Succinct summary of the episode, I think it's safe to say. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions, whether on Twitter or on YouTube. We're also going to get Discord back up and running if you want to communicate with us there. This is just the first episode of what is going to be an extended season, and because there are more weeks of regular season, there are more episodes of Euphoria and more opportunities for us to dive deep into specific topics or specific teams. So if you don't feel like you heard enough about a team today, hit us up. We can make more time to talk about them in the future. Thanks everyone so much for listening. This is episode 12, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, same time, same place. Woo! LEC is back. Let's get it. We'll see you next week.